Hello. I go by Mayor Watt on Twitch and elsewhere. I'm the mayor of ohmTown. ohmTown is that site. Oh gosh, I'll never get it right. ohmTown is that site that's right there. But I'm also here on Twitch currently for an hour a day. So far every day. And I'm hopefully going to see some more people coming into my chat. I don't really hype up my channel, but so people have to kind of stumble across it. The idea behind ohmTown is to aggregate news in a bunch of different areas. There's 6 of them across the top of the site. And each one of them has groups and forums in which news is aggregated through a bunch of software on my site. And it gets kind of corralled into these various groups. And what I do for each show is kind of go through a sample of the news. And as time goes on, I'm looking for hosts, co-hosts, mods, and so on, both for the site and for live Twitch shows. I'd like to get to 50 shows a week, shared amongst me and whoever else wants to host a show and shows an interest. And I don't know, maybe perhaps can be more compelling than I am, which may not be hard. I don't know. There's a lot of people that are streaming, so hopefully if you stumble across my VODs or you stumble across this live, I hope you come in here, feel welcome, and ask questions. That's what I riff off of. I don't really prep for the show. I like reading the news live, and talking about it, and I can expound upon certain elements of it because that's what I do when I'm not streaming and doing other things. But for the most part, I try to add context to news and information, and make it possibly easier to understand or digest, or give a different perspective based on my experiences. So, and we all have our own worldview and perception of things. So it's good to talk about it, and not necessarily be an echo chamber for the same exact information. Kind of just, if you're always just talking to yourself, you don't really need to talk, right? Wait a minute. I think that's what I'm doing here in this chat. I don't know now. Earlier today, about 15 minutes ago, I launched Streamlabs after making some updates, and it didn't go well. Yeah, it's weird. With OBS all by itself, everything ran just fine. My CPU is somewhere sub 3%, running everything that I'm doing, right? But when I ran Streamlabs, it was somewhere bouncing between 15 and 35%. Yeah, there could be a lot of communication stuff going on in the background. I let my firewall communicate without issue, so I'm not sure really what it is that was causing all of this overhead. But I noticed that the stream itself was really, really bad. Just horrible. But I'm sending out at 6,200 on average kilobits per second. So I'm really not sure what was going on, but I'll look into it. I'd like to get alerts and other things rolling, and yeah, I'll just have to get it going. At any rate, on with the show. I've made a selection, but I'm going to go back to the front page and see if anything new has come into ohmTown, because pretty regularly, if you mash that home button and just come back to the beginning of ohmTown, you'll see more information. You can always go into each one of these groups. It parses information and then displays it. And so here is the information that all aligns with these particular groups. These are all groups that are housed within Create. I want to make it some other title, but I don't want to necessarily make it Maker. It's actually a brand, and I'm not really interested in crossing paths with other people's brands and goodwill. I know the specifics of it, of trademark, patent, copyright, IP law, etc., and it's not that I'm worried really that they'll come after me because I'm using the word maker, but it's not necessarily aligning with everything. More on that if you're interested. Feel free to ask questions in chat. If you are a human and not Stream Elements or Streamlabs or another bot, feel free to ask questions. So these 6 here are areas of interest, and that's wherein all of the news is funneled. Again, I just come in here and I mash that home page, and I get new content all the time. And like I said in many of my other VODs, this was built primarily because I try to gather up as much news and information as possible in various areas, and these are the areas and the little subcategories wherein news should be aligned. So within Prime Glass, it will be photography bound. Smack Talk is about Apple products and services, and sometimes competitors are discussed within it, but it's going to be heavily more on the Mac side, Apple side. And you can deduce from the rest of these what the topic will probably be. And like I said, I do this. I made this site public because I figured other people would like it based on talking with others and showing them the site. Hey, that's neat. Well, then I made it public. So go sign up, then come on back and chat with me on Twitch. But some of the news that I got it's a smattering of stuff from across the site. And so Oceanian, wow, that is, I'm going to butcher that word, and I can't believe I did that. Oceanian Data Center launch date and future editions revealed as digital sales resume for Final Fantasy 14. You don't have to click to open up a new page. For most of the links, once you get into a group, you'll see whatever the discussion is that you clicked on, and then you can click on visit the source, and it'll take you to the source. In this case, it's our RPG fan. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to come in. Well, this one is different. But I want you to click the link to go to the news source, or the news blurb, and then click visit the source and go see what the source is. Obviously it says down here that it's RPG fan, but this is the content that you're going to go and read, and then you can come back and chat regarding what it is that you read. And I highly encourage going to the source to read it. What I've witnessed in other news aggregation sites is people read the titles and then make a comment. And it very rarely, if ever, truly encapsulates the amount of information that's on that site. So I always want you to go and check it out. Persona 4. if you're interested in writing, how to write an inciting incident in your novel. I'm really interested in short stories. I would love to be able to read live your short stories. If you come across this and have an interest in me reading it, then I'd be more than willing to read it, and I'll take greater care and not butcher a word that you write. And then people can talk about it and maybe provide feedback or in some way assist you in your writing efforts. And I wouldn't be expecting of anything. Like I won't say, well, my reading of this is mine. I have no problem if I read it and you want to use it since you're the author. I'd even let you have access to the reading of the prose you write. So let me know. Supply chain woes could worsen as China imposes COVID lockdowns. I've always found this fascinating because depending on where the news is, there is no issue anymore. Yet we still have these supply chain issues. There's no COVID in certain countries. Not as a concern, not as a problem, not impacting the operation of the state or the country, but we still have these supply chain issues. Thousands upon thousands of people are getting sick in the United States alone, let alone in other countries. Combine it all together and you have basically the zombie apocalypse without the zombies. So we will continue to have these supply chain issues. So what else? What do you want to see here? Spiders, archaeology, and brain confetti. That's a heck of a link to click. I'll open it. It says our critic recommends old and new books. So if you click this link, it's going to take you to the New York Times, and then New York Times is going to tell you about some old and new books, and you can scroll through it and see exactly what all is being discussed and recommended. And then you can come back and chat with me. I haven't read these two, but you certainly could. And then you can come back and say, hey, those books were great, or hey, those books were horrible, or something in between, which is usually the case. Failure on voting rights would be historic. So what do you think of that? This little snippet just says democracy is losing. And this is a New York Times post. Failure on voting rights would be historic. So what really is the issue here? Why is it such a struggle to suggest that everybody should have voting rights, and that the opportunity to vote should be applied to everybody equally? Pardon me, I needed a drink. It's really weird because there were drop boxes for ballots removed in various places or closed down early in various places, and or we are living in a day and age where we should be able to mail in stuff and it get counted, except that the idea suddenly has become that anything that isn't done within a voting booth is suspect. But it hasn't been a concern really for quite some time, and it isn't that it should be suspect or not. I mean, it really, there hasn't been any demonstration anywhere that shows that mailing in ballots has been an issue. Nobody has found any fraud except for, ironically, certain people decrying that it's a problem, and then in the ensuing investigation it's found out that they are the ones that are doing the fraud. They are the ones that are mailing in the guy whose wife had died, he mailed in the ballot on her behalf. Well, that's illegal. But it wasn't just that he did it illegally, it's that he did it and decried that there are dead people voting. Well, I hate to break it to you, but the dead people that are voting are the ones, they're those people, right? Those people are dead. They're not going to mail it in, so the vote wouldn't have been mailed in. But to decry it but be the one that's doing it is just absurd. It goes back to really, where is the problem? Because it hasn't been a problem. It simply hasn't been a problem. Now, in this day and age, I think that we have the means to facilitate voting rights in such a way that everybody has the ability to vote. Everybody is treated as one person, one vote. It doesn't matter where you come from or who you are. As long as you are a U.S. citizen, then you have a stake in the direction of the country, and you should vote, and you should have ample time to do it. But the discussion always tends to degrade, even though I try to keep things on an even keel. Usually it's about the pattern of vote collection, where at 4 o'clock in the morning, a massive amount of votes suddenly get tallied. Well, that's because they've been spending all night gathering it all up. And we can get into that if somebody is interested, but this is rather a holistic look at news and information across ohmTown. And by proxy, it's the rest of at least the United States. It's not hyper local, so it's usually nationwide stuff or newsworthy in some way. But go and check it out. Failure on voting rights would be historic. If everybody isn't treated equal in their vote, then we've gone back to the dark ages. And for the most part, the idea that somebody is less because they have less, or is more because they're a billionaire, is just absurd, because not everybody can become a billionaire because they don't have the opportunity to become a billionaire. The billionaires that exist today started out already millionaires. With a lot of privilege and a lot of opportunity. Would love to know what your thoughts are on this. So throw it in chat and talk to me. That'd be great. So this next article that was pulled in, it says how to effectively use legal dictionaries. If you've never looked at a legal dictionary, you should take a look. It's quite interesting. I don't have mine in front of me, but it explains some of the verbiage that's used in the legal field. There's a whole book about citing properly in law, and it breaks it out by state, jurisdiction, federal versus state. It really goes into the minutia of citations. Excuse me for hiccuping. And so as time has gone on, it's gotten more and more complex, and it remains arcane. And some people think that it's intentionally arcane to keep those who don't delve deep into it at bay, really. And to me, I think that's almost true. But you have the ability. There's a lot of programs in each state that is access to law. So you might want to look into it if you are interested in the legal field and not necessarily going into law. Paralegals exist, and they are not bound by law school. They are the so paralegals do a lot of billable hours of work that gets sent to an attorney, and the attorney basically says, yep, all of this is perfect, awesome, thanks for your hard work, I'll provide it to the client. And so, but not only that, it goes a little bit deeper, because a paralegal can go do investigation, go do interviews, can elicit responses from clients by asking certain questions. They are basically attorneys, but can't hold themselves out as attorneys. They can't provide legal advice. They can't provide legal conclusions. They could have casual conversations, but have to be very forthcoming with the idea that, with the knowledge, they have to tell the people that are around them, I'm not an attorney. I'm not your attorney, even if I was an attorney. I am a paralegal. I do research. I create a lot of documents, but it's all processed finally and officially by an attorney. But a paralegal does a lot of work, and it's typically at a much lower rate than an attorney. So respect to paralegals. But if you are interested in learning more about it, not just paralegals, but about law, then you should pick up a legal dictionary, because it has a ton of information. And definitely go over to the ABA journal and check it out. This is just a little snippet. It doesn't even have any content, because the news source had just how to effectively use legal dictionaries. And they talk about it. So go and check it out. So I'm very interested in AR and VR. Way back in the day, I used to do research in virtual reality, treating phobias and pain management, and seeking ways to learn faster. And back then, the material, the equipment was big and bulky, had a huge umbilical, much bigger than the one that's used now with many VR headsets. And the opportunity to be wireless was it was nothing. It was impossible to do anything wireless. Now we're coming up on the day and age where AR and VR are the same headset, and they're sub $1,000, sub $500 for some levels of quality. But this Apple headset that keeps getting teased in various tech media companies is getting more and more data points, right? So now it says the long rumored mixed reality headset could cost consumers over $2,000 when it eventually ships. I would not be surprised by something like that, because the systems, the tower systems that Apple puts out are just amazingly expensive compared to a PC. But that's what kind of happens when you have high quality and a single source provider. Since there's no competition for the Apple customer, you basically get, as long as the market is sound and the quality is there, you'll get higher prices. And I have seen anecdotally my cost of equipment in terms of resale declining. And that might be because there's just more and more people that are consuming these types of equipment pieces like tablets and phones. And there's so many more out there. But Apple used to be, sub 3% of the market. That's not so true anymore. So when this comes out, it's going to be high quality. It's going to have relatively good metrics. And if it's powered by its M series of chips, then it will be a processor juggernaut. It'll be great. And hopefully it'll be wireless entirely. It says AR and VR. Which augmented reality really needs to be highly mobile so that you can go somewhere while wearing it and it provide data in the augmented form, right? But $2,000 is a full-on PC. Obviously, walking out with a PC under your arm is a big different set of issues than wearing an Apple VR or AR headset. And I will truly want one of these when they come out. But right now, I suppose I should be pretty content with like a Vive or something. It's just that the cable is just horrible. So we'll see if when it comes out, it costs $2,000. This is obviously an Apple Insider article. Here, I'll show you. This looks like a render. But if it comes out at $2,000, I would be unsurprised. According to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman on his Power On newsletter, the headset's looking at above $2,000. Yeah, it seems like this is going to end up being a $24.99 kind of a thing, particularly if it is so Gurman recounts some of the rumors about the headset so far, including its use of 2 processors on par with M1 Pro. This would be an overwhelming amount of technology to be throwing at AR or VR glasses unless it's fully VR. Wireless, just a computing juggernaut, and if that's true, then it's going to be probably north of $3,000. As long as it is a standalone device that doesn't need anything else, doesn't need to be connected to an iPad or an iPhone or anything. But even $2,000 seems low for the rumor that is highlighted right here. So we'll see. But I suspect that it isn't going to come out for another 2 or 3 years, if it ever comes out of kind of the rumor arena. When I was going through all of my news, I found this. Professor who called students vectors of disease is suspended. And this is somebody from Ferris State University. Comes out of the New York Times. I'll click the link to show the picture. So the person is suspended, right? And they uploaded, quote, the bizarre welcome video. But some of their peers are saying that their rights of free expression were being curtailed. So in academia, there is this concept called academic freedom. So academic freedom is supposed to be that you can talk about or provide even an assignment, really. But it's something that you as a professor might think is appreciable, right? So you think that it is significant enough to discuss in your classroom. But apparently this professor, in a profanity-laced introduction video for a history class, the professor wears an astronaut-style helmet with air filters, tells the students that they are vectors of disease, and says that their grades are predetermined regardless of their efforts. Now, leaving all the rest off, saying that their grades are predetermined alone is reason for suspension. And that is probably the reason. But this is sensational, right? Calling students vectors of disease in a video wouldn't have gotten them suspended, I believe. It's just one more element, because humans are, we have the ability to carry viruses around with us. That's the whole reason why Omicron is spreading so fast. It's not because it's, sitting on a leaf somewhere and that's where you're getting it. We're getting it because we're in close proximity to others who have it, humans. So we are all, it's, in another phrase, it would be forensic transfer, or biological transfer. We are infecting each other, because we don't wash our hands enough. We aren't wearing our mask. The vaccine stops the illness from killing us, but it doesn't stop us from getting it. It suppresses the symptoms significantly enough that you can still live your life and not end up on a ventilator in a hospital, racking up a bill that is so crazy, outlandishly high that you'll never recover from it unless somebody can charge it off somewhere. But this video is not just because of that. It's because it's profanity laced. It's that it's hyperbolic. It's that he called them vectors of disease. But the thing that did it the most is that their grades are predetermined. That alone makes the institution feel suspect, at least, in the professor, because it's arbitrary and capricious grading, where if their grades are already predetermined, regardless of their efforts, what is the purpose of the professor going through all of the motions and all of this, and then saying, I will not take questions in class because I'm wearing this, referring to the helmet, in order to stay alive. I think this person basically fell off the deep end. It's been viewed more than 360,000 times since it was posted on YouTube. You know what? I wouldn't normally do this. No, I won't do it. You'll have to go and do it. I want you to go over to New York Times and read this article and click that link and take a look at it. At 74, the professor is already vested, probably, unless he started really late. He's probably vested in his retirement and could walk away from the job at any time. And most community colleges and most universities have done away with tenure. So, and most states are at will. So regardless, there's no security in saying these outlandish things. But really the only thing that Yeah. Yeah, the only really odd thing would be that the grades were predetermined. So I wouldn't be surprised if this institution fires him. It has zero to do with free expression being curtailed. You still need to be professional and ethical. And to me, that's not this, you know? You can say what you want behind a closed door, wherein you are still professional and ethical. You still would never not only say, but to actually implement that grades are predetermined is bizarre for a professor. And so I would be shocked if they stay employed by that university. Let's see. It doesn't matter how hard you work or how hard your grade or how great your grades are, he says, adding, my grading system is based on the Calvinist doctrine of predestination, a theory developed by... Okay. I randomly assign grades before the first day of class. Later in the video, however, he says that everything you need to earn an A is available. So what happens with police, right? If a police officer does something that is unethical to the point where the institution suspects that they have done something historically bad, right? So they've framed someone. Their entire arrest record gets reviewed, either a cursory review looking for the ones that stand out, or a really deep dive audit into the person's arrest history. And this happens in other places too. So if somebody in law does something that's unethical, then everything that they've done gets looked at. Looking for more violations, because you do not want to be a false positive or a false negative, right? You don't want to be harmed because somebody is doing something like, I assign grades at the beginning of the semester, only to have you thrown a curveball saying that you can still get an A. I mean, every student would be confused by that. And those that aren't are kind of chuckling like, what's the reality of this class? I'm not quite sure. And then apparently he says, he adds that students should contact him only over Zoom. Whatever you think of the risk of COVID, I live in a very different world, he says. My risk is much greater than yours. Yeah, at 74, it is much greater than others. Depending on what's going on at home too, he could be immunocompromised. He could have family around him that's immunocompromised, simply being 74, which says earlier in the article. Everybody's is very different from everybody else's, though. The context does matter. But the absurdity of the statements, that's a context in and of itself. So he kind of dug a hole 14 minutes deep. And it's quite fascinating. Mr. Bacon, the Faculty Association's president, said in a statement that Professor Mailer's classes are very popular, in particular because he challenges students' assumptions and makes the class extremely interesting. Sure, that's great. But are the grades that are being given actually based on the performance of the students? Because it didn't say that at the beginning of the article or the video, and somewhere in the middle of the video it does, right? I'm gonna have to go and watch this video because the straight text on this article causes some concern. So I'll watch it, and then we can come back tomorrow at 6 o'clock and I'll talk about it again, briefly, because news flows fast, and unless it's a sustained concern, we can just move on and look at this kind of like I saw a UFO. I don't know what it was. I saw something, but we'll just leave it at that. So, in fact, Mr. Bacon, who is the Faculty Association president, I am told that we have had administrators visit his class and come away with statements like, "I wish I'd had a professor like you when I was in college." Yeah, well, again, when you do an observation, it doesn't necessarily mean that you really understand the minutia of what goes on in the classroom. You see a snippet, and you're not sitting there for an hour and a half or 2 hours or 4 hours or however long the class is. And you can read reviews day in and day out, but students, you could have 100 students in your class and you'll get 50 that love you and 50 that hate you. And an administrator looking at a class doesn't necessarily see that the grades you're assigning are predetermined based on an ideology that doesn't align with academia. You get the grade you earn by doing either the hard work or no work, and it's somewhere in between an A and an F. So I'm surprised by this, but I thought that it was really interesting. Maybe some more will come out about this, but I'll go check out that video in a little bit. So what do you think? You have any questions? You have any comments? Come on by and talk to me. Throw some questions in chat. I can give some context to quite a few things, I suppose. I'm going to leave my diatribe about the professor for further review, and then tomorrow we can talk about it. Apple once prototyped HomePod with battery power. I would love HomePods with battery power as long as the battery lasts. But if it has a long old cable and a big old box sitting there, yeah, I'm not sure. I'd be charging that. HomePods are always on, like a soft on, in that they're always listening for a key phrase. And once they hear that key phrase, then they activate all of their processor power and reach out to a remote location to process some more data if they don't have the ability to solve the problem locally. I know that my HomePods basically respond with, "Hey, I found some information, ask it from your phone," which elicits the response. That is a dumb smart speaker, let me tell you. But I would rather, I don't know what I would rather. I would rather have a system that worked. And for a lot of the requests that I make of my HomePod, which is information bound, there's a whole lot of overhead involved with processing the data and making it a valid response to inquiry and all of that. So a whole lot more artificial intelligence, a whole lot more machine learning, a whole lot more curation. And you'll end up probably somewhere with an Amazon Echo. But then you might also run across some weirdness coming from your HomePod, because I had weirdness coming from my Echo, to the point where the people that I gave them to, I asked, "Hey, are you cool with, this news about this device?" And everybody says, "Yeah." And so I actually gave them away. But anyway, I guess that's another story. But Apple once prototyped HomePod with battery power. I've said this in other VODs. I despise cables. This cable here, the one that's in this picture, had an Apple Insider. So Malcolm Owen wrote this article, and I presume did all of the research into this, did the due diligence into this. And this picture just kind of highlights that it's yet another device with a cable, that if you have cats, the cats play with the cable, or a dog will chew on it and cut the thing in half. My HomePods have been accosted by my cats. I have three particularly wild cats, not your normal house cat. But at any rate, if the battery pack was incorporated into it and it ran for a serious amount of time, I might be interested. But no, I don't want to keep on having to charge up something. I wish that you can Qi charge things and they function at the same time, so that you could pick it up and put it somewhere else if you wanted to. That would be awesome, right? So a HomePod Mini. Oh, by the way, I used to have HomePods, the full-size HomePods. They were big, heavy, chunky things that were made out of a metal mesh all the way around them. And Apple discontinued them, and there was just a massive run on them. And so I sold mine and switched to HomePod Minis. HomePod Minis don't have even a comparable amount of power compared to the original HomePods, which were very loud and very high quality speakers, in my estimation. Obviously, somebody who's an audiophile will say they were garbage, but I liked them. They were very capable. I'm not sure how much. Maybe I can try it. Maybe I can test it. I've got battery packs, and I'll plug it in and see how long it lasts. Because I've got a few HomePod Minis floating around. So what do you think? Would you like a HomePod Mini that has battery power instead of a cable? I would love it without a cable, but I also want a smarter HomePod Mini. This says prototyped HomePod, not the HomePod Mini, just to be clear. And this in the picture is not a HomePod. It is a HomePod Mini. So let me know in chat what you think. Or if you want to come back tomorrow, come on back tomorrow. So I'm going to close that. And Project Haven gameplay is shown. This is a link from RPG Gamer. It shows a walkthrough video. I won't play the walkthrough. I want you to go and check it out. But you can obviously go to ohmTown.com, click on the link, and then come and watch this video on RPG Gamer by clicking the link at the bottom of the article. Again, my article, what my aggregator grabs is just a portion of it, not the whole thing. I'm not interested in cloning somebody else's site, but I am interested in aggregating news for my benefit and by proxy, all of yours, if you are interested in the same topics. So you can always come back to ohmTown after you watch the video and read the article, and you can make a comment. There's gamification options all throughout the site. So every time you vote something up or down, make a comment, make a friend, log in, do pretty much anything. You get points. And at some point I will deploy something that allows you to benefit from those points in some way, either on the Twitch stream translated over, so that you can use something, I don't know, turn off my camera, whatever it might be. Mute me because I'm not making any sense to you, or I don't know, whatever it might be. But regardless, I want interaction between you, me, and all of the sites that get aggregated into ohmTown, because they're the ones that produce all of the news and information. But I need to consolidate it into one place. That's why ohmTown exists. And I hope that you benefit from it too. But always go to the source, because there isn't going to be enough information on ohmTown to make any sense of it. It's always a tiny little snippet. But what do you think of Project Haven? I can actually play it from the site, but I'm going to mute it. So it's much like Syndicate. I like the graphics. I'm not really into turn-based, but that's unique. Although many moons ago, I pitched a game to Electronic Arts based on Warhammer that did this. But at the time, the technology was way too advanced, way too beyond the capabilities of Electronic Arts. And they even told me, they actually came to me and my friends and had an interview with me and a couple of my friends who had written the script and was putting together the initial, not really a prototype, just an example, a storyboard of what we wanted this Warhammer 40K computer game to be. And it's basically this. I haven't seen yet if everything is deformable, if you have the ability to, and for me, it wasn't, the objective was to make Warhammer 40K a computer-based game with endless replayability and expansion, where you could add to what you have through progression of the game's upgradability, right? So how do I put this? It kind of how you have DLC today. That's how it was going to be then, because you just couldn't put everything together in Warhammer 40K and throw it out there for $60. It's just an impossible task. It's kind of like how Star Citizen is. It's just a massive undertaking. The amount of world building and growth that exists within Warhammer is spectacular. And I wanted it to be a game like this, where you could build out things, although my initial design was procedurally built worlds, and but not to this level of sophistication. Obviously, it was a little bit more, I don't know how to describe it other than it was just the world. And the objective was to take certain points and gather resources and build out bases and things like that. But this looks pretty neat. And if everything is deformable, destructible, you have the ability to blow a hole in a wall to get to somebody that's on the other side of that wall, even better. But I haven't really seen much beyond that. Working around obstacles, not necessarily going through them. Maybe I missed something. But neat graphics, neat world building. I hope it comes out. It says Project Haven is being developed for PC and planned for release in 2022. So I'm fighting the urge to say next year because it is 2022. So go check out RPG Gamer, follow the link from ohmTown if you are curious about it, or just go straight over to rpggamer.com and read the article for yourself. And so I think the last one that I'm going to talk about, and I don't really want to call it short, but I'll stick to the hour that I'm about to hit. This is really interesting because the reason apparently this even exists, a Safari 15 bug can leak your recent browsing activity and personal identifiers. Yeah, I'm gonna have to dig a little more into this. But it has to do with IndexedDB and the way it acts as an API. So it stores data, and what's supposed to happen is you are compartmented. Every page, every site is separate from each other, other than a cookie that might allow you to have continuity between pages within a site. That way it doesn't break every time you go to a different page. Like there's some software as a service deployments that I interact with where if I don't utilize the exact same session on my browser, it will require me to log in. The moment that I try and open a secondary page, it will require me to log in again, and that first page dies. It's an interesting but dubious solution. I'm not quite sure why it's implemented that way in more than one place that I interact with, but it does. Anyway, with this, like this little snippet says, as explained by Fingerprint.js, IndexedDB abides by the same origin policy. So you can always click this link and go take a look at it, but it basically stops somebody else from grabbing data from another location. And it's kind of how you might hear cross-site scripting or something like that, right? Well, this is within the browser itself, and the ability to access it should never happen. But in this case, it does. So this comes from The Verge. Click the link, you get taken here, and any information leak from one source to another source just makes cybersecurity jobs ever more important. And if you are not willing to learn about this stuff, about cybersecurity in general, and you're not willing to take the steps necessary to protect yourself online, you will be subject to somebody else's whim or criminal mastermind, where they take your identity or take control of your computer remotely. And maybe one day I can give an example of how this kind of stuff gets done. But there are many, many other people out there that are much more capable of showing these things, and maybe I can find somebody that's willing to come onto the show and talk. But at this point, the idea here is that any information in one browser session should not bleed into another browser session. And it shouldn't come from something that is integrated into that system by any means. So, you know, with another type of example, if I'm on your network and it isn't encrypted, I can listen to everything that you are sending across the network, and I can gather up that information, put all of the packets together, and extract valid information from it. Particularly things like email, which is kind of like the low-hanging fruit of data exfiltration, because it's unencrypted. When it's in motion, it's unencrypted. Unless it's on the same system, it's unencrypted. when it gets transferred to somebody else, it's unencrypted. It's just the nature of the beast, but data within a browser shouldn't be unencrypted and accessible. If it's accessible to somebody, it should be encrypted to the point where even if they did get it, it's useless. But like this tweet here says, this is a huge bug in OS X. Safari users can temporarily switch to another browser to avoid their data leaking across origins. iOS users have no such choice because Apple imposes a ban on other browser engines. Well, this is implying that other browser engines don't have flaws themselves. When you know of a flaw and you notify the publisher and they fix it, the whole world is a better place. Switching to a different browser doesn't necessarily help you anyway. But Apple is very quick on fixing things when they feel that it is a big enough problem that they need to move on it. And I'm sure that they will. They'll move on this rather quickly. That said, any information that's traveling across the internet is suspect in and of itself, because you just never know. You have to trust but verify. You can't just assume that everything that you're reading is what everybody else is reading. Historically, we've seen websites that change the data depending on who it is that's on the site. They do A/B testing beyond just the marketing of an ad placement. They change the data themselves. At one point, there was a shopping site that was changing the prices depending on who it was that was on the site. So when I went there, I saw a different price than the next person until it gained traction and people got upset about it. And who knows if it still happens, because I know of sites where even today, if somebody else goes to the site, they will have a different price for the product that's being sold. I know it. I see it. It happens all the time. But at any rate, although it was a proof of concept demo, you can try it out if you have Safari 15. So I wouldn't call it a proof of concept demo. If you can do it, it's not a proof of concept. It's a real thing. But I get the point, right? But this will be resolved in short order, and it'll die on the vine. This will probably just be a fix. But the bigger issue here is that it's kind of titillating to say that, well, these other browsers aren't allowed in the iOS ecosystem. So therefore, kind of raise hell and draw attention to it. That's fine, I suppose. But no matter what, you run the same chance of another issue in another browser. And I'm not saying, I had somebody once call me out because I gave a solution to somebody who asked for that solution. I said, all you have to do is click this button. But the host of the show got bent out of shape and actually called me out by my username, saying, why do people like you say that? And I'm like, I didn't even pursue it. I just dropped it because you can't win against the host of a show. I mean, they're sitting there blasting their message out to everybody. But to me, a person in chat asked, how to change something. And I said exactly how to change something. You always run the chance of something leaking. You always run the chance of some breach. And I can't count how many times I've been involved in a breach because my data is sitting on somebody's site and it happens. And it gets, believe me, it gets much worse than that, depending on where the breach takes place, than just some information. I mean, like my entire life is out there because somebody was breached. And this will get patched, and it doesn't need to be sensational. It doesn't have to have some other message than here's the bug, because a different browser isn't going to fix this. It's going to fix it, but it isn't really going to fix the issue of security. The only way that you can really stop security issues from happening is to power down your device and keep it off the internet and well, no, just unplug it and turn it off, because there's always going to be a security issue. At some point it will happen again. Not just this browser, not just Safari, Chrome, Firefox, the original Mozilla. It's just a reality of it. So why make it more sensational than it is? Fix the problem and keep moving forward. Make your world more secure. You can install antivirus, anti-malware software. Even that can be breached. Even that can have a failure because the malware is polymorphic or or it's a true 0 day where it takes 18 months for it to even be discovered. And then time for the people who need to fix it to fix it. You can have a firewall and limit information that gets exfiltrated. Like I downloaded a game, I installed the game, I ran the game, and then it popped up. A game that's local popped up on my firewall as sending information out. So why the hell is it sending any information out? Well, I would have to load up Wireshark and start rooting around to try and find out what information is being exfiltrated from my local system. Or I could just turn off the ability for that application to send information out. It's pretty darn easy, as a matter of fact. I mean, let me see if I can. Yeah, I won't get into it. But I have to configure stuff to show you this. But anyway, you can load up Glasswire and it'll show you exactly what is going in and out of your system. And if you have multiple systems, you can process all of them using Glasswire. It's reasonably inexpensive and it's very capable. But I certainly have seen some applications where I'm wondering what the heck they're doing. Why are you sending information out? You're a local install. Are you reaching out to update? This is slightly different in that there's a bug in the system and it'll get fixed. But why charge that some other browser is immune to everything? It's not. Pardon me. At any rate, I appreciate you stopping by. If you find my VOD and if you're in my chat, then wonderful. Thank you very much for coming. I've been chatting for over an hour now, and I'll be back tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Thank you very much.